Hello and welcome to your viewers to a new episode of Windows on Nile TV International. I'm Karim Gamaluddin and I'll be your host for today. And today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, which is tourism in Egypt. And of course, the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities is exerting relentless efforts to revive the tourism industry that has been hardly hit due to the, not only in Egypt, but worldwide due to the unprecedented global emergency of COVID-19, but the Ministry of Antiquities and all the stakeholders are exerting many efforts, as I mentioned, to boost the tourism industry in Egypt. Also, to shed more light on this topic, we're most delighted to be joined here in the studio by Dr. Mahmoud El Halwagy, former director of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. A very good evening, sir, and Ramadan Kareem to you.
Thank you so much. Same to you.
Thank you. Doctor, first of all, the Ministry of Tourism has rolled out a campaign or an initiative called Discover Egypt to boost the tourism industry and also to raise awareness about the spectacular archaeological sites spread throughout Egypt in different places. How do you see this initiative and its importance?
In fact, it is a really good initiative of the Ministry of Antiquities and Tourism to attract the attention of citizens ever in Egypt or outside of Egypt to the archaeological sites, to museums, to increase awareness of the Egyptians and other visitors, which will help in promoting tourism in Egypt in the coming season, inshallah. I think this initiative will help very much to attract many people or many visitors to come to Egypt. This is a very important issue and it's a very important file for the Antiquities and Tourism Ministry to take care about, since we are now preparing for the coming season for tourism. So to prepare visitors, citizens for this season, I think this initiative will help so much in this field.
Yes. Dr. Mahmoud, also speaking about domestic tourism and its importance, if you can tell us also about the recent inauguration of the Museum of Civilization, spectacular event, and we have seen not only in Egypt but the world has been watching the Golden Parade and following it closely, and it was praised by many media outlets and experts worldwide. How do you see the impact of this on the tourism industry?
Really, I feel that Egypt expressed herself very well, presenting to the whole world such a great museum, the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, including the Royal Mummies Parade, transferred from Cairo Museum to Fustat Museum or Civilization Museum. This event, which embraced the whole world, and as you mentioned, like more than 400 news agencies and TV channels covered this event very well, and most of the world were very impressed by this celebration, and this is a great image for Egypt and the Egyptian, telling the whole world that Egypt is here and you are welcome to Egypt. see how is mummies, royal mummies parade is transferred from Cairo Museum to Civilization Museum, and the receiving of His Excellency President Sisi for the Royal Mummies Parade was unexpected for the whole world to see that Egyptian and the state president and ministers are respecting their civilization, their ancient history, their archaeological objects are coming to the new Museum of Civilization. I myself was very, very proud of being an Egyptian, belong to such civilization, the most oldest civilization on earth, established in Egypt. I think this was a great message for the whole world to see modern Egypt and new Egypt, how Egypt is working on, even with such coronavirus, which is almost affected the whole world, but it shows the world that Egypt working hard in such projects like Civilization Museum, as well as many other new museums in Hurghada, in Sharm el-Sheikh, are recently inaugurated for tourism. Even the Museum of Civilization is really one of the important national projects. It shows the world how Egypt is working to see such a great museum. It's not only a museum, it is a cultural center, including a great museum representing the civilization of ancient Egypt, not only ancient Egypt, but all the historic eras passed by Egypt since the early beginning, pre-dynastic, prehistory, Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, late period of Egyptian history,
Greek, Roman,
and Greek and Islamic, even recent time contemporary,
yes,
is presented and displayed in this museum. It shows all aspects of civilization, not only archaeological artifacts, but also costumes, other aspects like habits and customs, all tradition all over Egypt, from Alexandria to Aswan. It also talks about the River Nile and how it affects the civilization of ancient Egypt. Also showing the cultivation, agriculture, how was this first artifact, and I mean first event or first activity presented and taken part in ancient Egypt when the Egyptian settled in valley of River Nile. This was about more than 6,500 before Christ. It also shows mummification, which is a great secret and a great
has stunned the whole world till today.
Yes, and showing the royal mummies of ancient Egypt. All these aspects of civilization are represented together with manuscript, documents, papyrus, and ancient Egyptian language. All these aspects are represented in the museum. Besides the museum, there is a theater, there are cinema, there are bookshop and bookstores and other facilities which will help the visitors and will attract many visitors, as well as the area around the museum was improved and developed, the area of Ain al-Sira and the
full
lake.
transformation.
The whole field, the whole area, the atmosphere around is well improved and developed for the inauguration of the museum and for the royal mummies of ancient Egypt.
Yes. Dr. Mahmoud, following up on what you have just said, speaking about attracting tourists,
Yes.
as an expert, to what extent do you believe that this event will have an impact on the number of tourists visiting Egypt in the near future?
Inshallah, God's will, in the near future, I think this will attract many visitors coming to Egypt. Egypt to the whole world is a dream. Through my visits to different countries, all these places I met with citizens of these countries. Their dreams are to come to visit Egypt and see the River Nile, to see the pyramids, to visit Luxor and Aswan and Alexandria. I can't tell you how much they are eager to fulfill and to get this dream into true, to visit Egypt. Even young men, students, are preparing for this visit. Young children are dreaming of it, and they love the Egyptian history and the Egyptian antiquities. They study these antiquities and this history in the primary schools all over the world. And they like this civilization so much, and they love and they dream to come to Egypt. So I think such event will help and encourage, or to wake up the dreams of these of the visitors to prepare themselves to come to Egypt. Inshallah, the coming season, bi'iznillah, inshallah.
Yes. Dr. Mahmoud, also speaking about the efforts of the state and especially the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities to revive the tourism industry, we are seeing several refurbishments and the revamping of different museums, not only in Cairo but also in Sharm el-Sheikh and St. Catherine, and these historic and very important archaeological sites. If you can elaborate on that.
In fact, Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities are working so hard to promote and to develop and all museums and all archaeological sites all over Egypt. Recently inaugurated the new museum in Sharm el-Sheikh, and not so long in Hurghada, as well as in Sharm el-Sheikh. If we talk about Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada, normally visitors, foreign visitors, are coming for entertainment, for swimming, for diving, for fishing, for sitting under sun rays. Generally for entertainment, but to change their attitude from entertainment, or to combine between entertainment and cultural attitude, this is a great target of the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, which will help visitors who are only coming to relax and to sit on the shore, seashore, and having some fun time. Also to have some, or have an idea about ancient Egypt and the civilization of Egypt through such museums, which were recently established, and modern development and establishing of a new museum, like foreign museums with new methods of display, new methods of lighting and labeling, and as well as media, cinemas and films and audio visual devices to help the visitors. This is, I think, will help the visitors to visit these museums and to have some idea about ancient Egypt, as well as to encourage them not only to come to Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh, but also to visit Cairo, to see pyramids, to see Egyptian Museum, to visit Luxor and Aswan, and inshallah the coming season we will also celebrate a very huge event, the inauguration of the Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza. This will help very much in increasing numbers coming to Egypt for tourism.
Yes. Also, I was about to ask you, Doctor, about the Grand Egyptian Museum, of course, a very important event. How important is it? I believe it's another milestone achievement for the Egyptian state and, of course, the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities after the very interesting and very extraordinary event for the Golden Parade. Do you think that this will also have a further impact on the turnout of visitors coming to Egypt?
Of course it will. Such a huge national project like the Egyptian Museum of Civilization. Also, Egypt will celebrate the inauguration with a great event. Egypt is preparing for this event 2 years ago, and it was
postponed due to the pandemic.
Yes, it was postponed to the next coming season. It was should be opened last October, but postponed for because of coronavirus. And the event, Egypt will invite most of the whole world countries,
presidents,
kings, princes, princesses, prime ministers,
dignitaries from across the world. Yeah.
Of course. And the celebration will also be contain an opera about the golden king, King Tutankhamun, an opera. I think this celebration will give a great image for Egypt to other world, outside the world, as well as it will help so much for increasing numbers coming to Egypt, and it will send other new message to the whole world about modern Egypt and how is Egyptian is working hard even with coronavirus to express their civilization and to explain to the world and to show the world the civilization of ancient Egypt. If National Museum of Civilization is talking about civilization of Egypt from early beginning to the recent era, but the Grand Egyptian Museum it will talk about history of ancient Egypt. It will talk about kingship, royals of Egypt, also about queens of Egypt, royal families, princes and princesses, as well as high commander officers of army and high priests and viziers, prime ministers of ancient Egypt, and most public figures in ancient Egypt. All this will be represented in the Egyptian Grand Egyptian Museum. It will be one of the most important museums all over the world. Well equipped, modern equipped with showcases, with lighting system, labeling, and display art of object, as well as facilities for the visitors, like libraries and bookstores and like cinemas and theater and other facilities for visitors. This also will help and will increase and encourage the incoming visitors to Egypt in the next season, inshallah.
Yes. Also, Doctor, speaking about these achievements, how can we build on them to open new markets and to market Egypt globally?
Of course, this modern national projects, I'm not calling them museums. They are more than museums. They are cultural centers in Cairo, in Civilization Museum, in Grand Egyptian Museum, as well as modern administrative capital. It will be a grand cultural center, as well as there is a new museum is being furnished, telling about the history of capitals of Egypt since early beginning, since the settlement and since the unity between Upper and Lower Egypt with the beginning of the first dynasty in about since 3200 BC. The capital of Egypt was Memphis. This was the oldest capital of Egypt, and it was the first political unification all over the world. Egypt started the state and united state and with a capital. Before it was, Egypt was divided into a lower kingdom, which is south of Egypt, and upper kingdom. Upper kingdom is south of Egypt, and lower kingdom, which is north of Egypt. And each kingdom has a king, and each king has ministers. But when a king called Mini or Narmer unified Egypt and established the first dynasty, this was the first political unification all over the world, and Memphis was the first capital of Egypt. Then with King Akhenaten, the capital was in Tal el-Amarna in Minya province. Then Alexandria became the capital of Egypt when Alexander the Great came over Egypt, and Fustat was the capital of Egypt when Amr ibn al-As came to Egypt during Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Cairo established when Fatimid came to Egypt in 969 AD. So this was a brief idea about the new museum of Egypt in the new administrative capital, which will inaugurated soon. So I mean, all this new museum in Sharm el-Sheikh, in administrative capital, Grand Egyptian Museum, Museum of Civilization. This will give a great message, will send a great message to the whole world to welcome them to Egypt, to the land of civilization and the cradle of religion. When Moses was born in Egypt, and Jesus Christ came to Egypt when he was a young infant, and Prophet Muhammad, peace of God be upon him, passed by Egypt during his trip to Al-Quds في trip of Isra and Mi'raj. This is Egypt, the great Egypt, to the whole world, is welcoming all visitors on Egypt with such new projects to celebrate and to let the visitors enjoy their time with such most beautiful place and moderate weather and kind and friendly citizen of Egypt. This, I think, this is our message to the whole world.
Yes. Long live Egypt, and we have our fingers crossed for the upcoming inaugurations, as you have kindly mentioned, in the new administrative capital and the Grand Egyptian Museum. Also stories of success that we will, of course, talk about, and also the efforts exerted by the Egyptian state in this domain and in all domains. I really appreciate your presence and your insight, Dr. Mahmoud El Halwagy, former director of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Thank you so much for joining us on Windows, and we wish you a very pleasant night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And dear viewers, by this we come to the end of this episode of Windows on Nile TV International, and we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Until we meet again, this is goodbye. I'm your host for today, signing off, Karim Al-Din, and this is goodbye.